hair is already falling out of this clip, but we've got things that we've got to do. Do you mind if I just like, nope, that's not gonna work. Okay. Okay, here's the thing. I am planning on moving my filming room to a different room in the house. And that means that I don't want to have to move any of the books that I don't actually want to have. No, thank you. So I need to get rid of a lot of books. And here's the other thing though, however, I've only done an unhauled books one time. I unhauled books one time on my channel, and it's the only time that I've unhauled books ever in my like days of owning lots of books. And that was last year around this time. And I still have those books sitting in a laundry basket right here. So I technically unhauled them. They've been in that same laundry basket the entire time since I filmed that video. I just never got rid of them. So my plan is that I want to film this video, go through the books that I am unhauling this time around with you, which I think that there are a lot. I've got 2 laundry baskets here. Granted, they're not as full as the other one is, but we unhauled a lot of books last time. I think like 50, right? Like at least 50. So we'll see how many we have here. It's a lot. And then I'm gonna go through and like actually either sell them or donate them. I'm gonna split them up into piles. I don't know if I'll do that on camera. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll like film re-roll or something. I don't know. But either way, that's my plan, to actually get these books out of my house and out of my life, so that then I can take all of these down, put them in the other room, figure out how I'm gonna organize that. And then maybe if you're interested, I'll film a video on how I'm reorganizing the bookshelves and how I'm organizing that filming room in general, because it's going to be my film and workspace. Dory's going to help us. She's going to be our emotional support. Thank you so much, Dory. We've got a lot of books to talk about. Let's go ahead and get into it. I need an empty container to put these in. If you see lipstick on my teeth or hair sticking out anywhere, no you don't. First one. I would have sworn that I unhauled this the last time. You by Caroline Kepnes. This was technically in my red pile, although we can see from my little dog ear here that I actually stopped reading it around then. It's like scene for scene, the show, and I thought that I would really like that, but come to find out, I just want to watch the show. So, and I know that they diverge. I don't care. I'm not gonna finish the series. Another series I plan on not finishing, The Inheritance Games. I read this all within a day. It's a YA mystery. I thought it was fantasy. It's not. I read it for a local book club, so I'm glad that I read it because I really like that book club, but I hated it. I thought it was so stupid. And I just don't think that like YA mystery is really for me, and I don't care where this goes. Okay, here's the thing is I actually had this in my unhaul pile because I didn't like this, but I got this in New York, and I realized halfway through when I was like going through all the books that I wanted to unhaul that I actually, even though like most of those books were fails for me, I don't want to get rid of them because like they hold on, like they hold a memory for me. And most of my red books, which are like on this shelf and then where you can't see underneath here, I'm not gonna reread them. Very rarely do I reread books, and most of them are probably honestly gonna come from this shelf, which is like my all-time favorite shelf. So they just are here because they make me happy. And even though I didn't like this, it's a signed copy. I got it in New York. I have a memory attached to it, so I'm actually gonna keep this. So moving on. A book that I'm not going to keep that I also did not like, A Touch of Darkness. The only thing I liked about this is that there's a main character named Lexa, and I've never read a book with a character named Lexa in it. That's it. Persephone and Hades retelling, I hated it. Something that you'll notice, if you watched my last unhaul, this was also pretty prevalent, is that I somehow end up with multiple copies of books. So I'm trying to get rid of the multiple copies of the books that I have, unless I have multiple copies for a specific reason, which is usually that they're a favorite. But New Moon, I do not need this. And it's like, this is the cover. Like, this isn't a dust jacket. I have like a matching hard back set. I don't need the second one. I don't know how I ended up with 2 copies of just New Moon, or how that made it through the last unhaul. Becoming by Michelle Obama. I listened to the audiobook of this. I got this at like the thrift store. It was good, it was fine, but I don't need it. And it's so heavy. I cannot understand. Like, this is the heaviest book I own. And it's not like it's a huge fantasy book. It's just the book itself is heavy. Piranesi, this should have worked for me. It's weird, fantasy, you don't really know what's going on, kind of feels like a fever dream, but I hated it. It kind of falls under the Starless Sea umbrella for me, that I was like, what was the point? Why were we here? At least this one was a lot shorter. I've tabbed it up, so I need to remove the tabs. I need to remove the tabs on a lot of these, but it's got to get out of here. I haven't read this book yet, The Paris Apartment, but I've heard like nothing but horrible things. And if I'm gonna read a Lucy fully, it's not gonna be this one. And I just need to accept that at this point. This one I recently read, and I'm already unhauling it, and that's Out There Screaming by Jordan Peele. And it's just because every time that I look at this, it makes me mad. And it was fine. There's one of my favorite short stories ever in this collection. One, literally one. I think it was the one I just flipped to. It was really disappointing. And the more that I sit with it, the more disappointed that I become in it. And I just don't want things on my shelf that make me angry, unless they make me angry in like a visceral way that's kind of fun. That is just like an annoyed way. The Haunting of Ashbourne House was good. I'm never gonna reread this. I like Darcy Coates for like a fun, read it in a night, traditional haunted house or haunting kind of story. They're compulsively readable. I want to read more from her in the future. I actually really vibe with her books. I think I gave this like 4 stars, but I don't need it and I need to make space in my life. The Taking of Jake Livingston, I read in a recent vlog. I got this. Oh, do I want to keep this? This might be an example of a book that I didn't like, so I automatically thought to unhaul it, but it does have like a memory attached to it, which is that I got this with my partners at this like vintage expo that we went to. Okay, so maybe I might end up unhauling this later on, but actually for now I'm gonna keep this. Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell, I read like years ago, and then for some reason picked up a physical copy. I think because I didn't realize that I had already read it, but I definitely did. And it's a mystery thriller. I'm not gonna reread it. Malice, I read in the same vlog as A Touch of Darkness. I hated this. Like, that vlog, it was when I was trying to get in my fantasy romance era and nothing was working out. And I know that a bunch of people like this, and I was trying desperately to look for sapphic fantasy romance. And where was the romance? Where was the steam? Where was the magic? It wasn't for me. The Mermaid and the Witch in the Sea was good, it was cute, it's a YA fantasy, but it doesn't stick out in my mind, so out. Furthermore, was such a big disappointment for me. Did I accidentally move the camera? I hope not. It seems fine. It was such a big disappointment for me because I thought that I was gonna love this, and then I didn't. It's a YA fantasy, it's got some of that like whimsical, don't really know what's happening vibes. Should have worked for me. It's either YA or middle grade, actually. It might be middle grade fantasy. I'd heard amazing things and it just was kind of boring and drug on and I wasn't interested by the end of it. Salem's Lot by Stephen King. This was like one of the few times that I've tried to give Stephen King a shot. One of the first time, actually. And I got to like, oh, here we go. This is how far I got and I was so bored. This is all I had left to read and nothing was happening and I couldn't do it anymore. And then I found out that it's a vampire book and I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? It's not for me. Alone is a middle grade that I thought that I was gonna really like. It's written in, I always forget the word for this, it's not prose, whatever, kind of like poetry. For what reason? Don't know. It meant I read it in like literally an hour and a half, but I thought that it was gonna be this awesome survival story with this girl who's like, all of a sudden there's this emergency, she wakes up and everyone is gone except for her and this dog. And she has to kind of survive, which it kind of was, but it wasn't interesting. Not it kind of was, it was. That's what it was. It just wasn't an interesting take on that. In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. I read this for my Giving Authors a Second Chance vlog. And listen, Ashley Winstead and I, we don't mesh. Okay, it doesn't work for us. And I have now come to accept that and I'm accepting that full-heartedly and I'm getting rid of this. I'm in the middle of trying to read Midnight is the Darkest Hour and I am pretty convinced that I'm gonna DNF it. I haven't picked it back up since I started reading it 12 days ago. And that was my third and final trial with her. Something about her writing just makes me feel like I'm supposed to care about it, but I could not give a shit less about what's happening. There's Someone Inside Your House. I started this. I think I picked this up on sale at Barnes & Noble. Started it, it was fine. I think it's gonna be kind of a typical YA mystery thriller. And I know that there's like a Netflix film video. I was gonna say show or movie, and then I saw the word film, and what came out was video. There's a Netflix movie. Maybe I'll watch that instead, but I'm just done wasting my time on books that already feel mediocre to me. That already I have this expectation that it's gonna be like meh going in. I am in less of a slump than I was at the beginning of the year, but I really think what 2024 is about is me figuring out what my reading taste is and sticking to that. And I wanna stop putting off reading books that I think I'm gonna love for the fear that like I'm gonna love them, ? And then I'm gonna like run out of books that I'm gonna love, ? Because that doesn't make sense. And also, I mean, I've been in reading slumps before and I have gotten out of them. I've been in 5-star slumps before. I'm trying to get out of them. So if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen, whether I read those potentially 5-star books or not. So anyway, this is all just to say that I'm done putting off things because I'm afraid that I'm going to love them, which apparently is something I've been doing a lot recently. From the Desk of Zodi Washington, I read, it was really good. It's this cute middle grade contemporary story, but I don't need a physical copy. Milk and Honey. I don't know why I have a lot of poetry for someone who doesn't read poetry. I do think at some point in my life I read this, but the thing is that then Oliver was in his drinking out of any glass that I left around that had water in it era, dunking his head so far into the glass that when he came back up he brought the glass with him and then spilled the water everywhere. A few books have suffered that fate. Also including In My Dreams I Hold a Knife, which I think maybe you can see here. That is all of her water damage, and this one too, and it's not my thing, it's not my journey anymore. That kind of poetry, it's not for me at this point in time. This was in my stack, but it's going to fall under the list of books that I didn't like, but it has an emotional tie because I read it for my NYC vlog where I picked up all of these books in New York when I went there. So I'm gonna keep it even though it annoys me. The Sorority Murder, I think again, I picked this up on like a sale at Barnes & Noble or something like that. Those are the books that will get me. And I know better now. I'm much better about not picking up books just because they're randomly on sale at Barnes & Noble. This is gonna be a traditional mystery thriller that I just know that it's gonna be like a 2 or 3 star. A 3 star if I'm lucky, honestly. Again, I don't have the time or energy for that. Okay, 1 laundry basket down. That was the lesser filled laundry basket, so I don't think that we're quite halfway through. In fact, I know this laundry basket is much heavier, but we are at least making progress. A couple, I actually have, let me gather them all kind of together from what I can see here. Okay, so here I have just a stack of books that have been like gifted to me over the years. Some astrology books, a lot of astrology books, a book about gender. The astrology books, I'm just probably never gonna read. I thought about keeping them because they're cute and they were gifts, but I am just in my era of having fewer, nicer things. As Hannah Louise Poston would say, I love her. I've been watching so many of her videos and she's been really inspiring me to be more conscious about the things that I bring into my life and the things that I keep in my life. The idea that these are kind of cute, but I know I'm never gonna read them, and it was sweet that I was gifted them by people that I love, but getting rid of them doesn't affect our relationship at all, and it doesn't lessen the amount that I love them. So goodbye. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 books here. The next one, okay, this is actually a really funny story. So I have been trying to end my Book of the Month subscription for a while. I wanted to do a vlog, and I still might do a vlog. If I am tempted to restart Book of the Month, I need to film this vlog first. Because I was gonna do a vlog where I like read the first chapter of all my Book of the Month books and then picked out a few of them to read to see if like it's actually worth my money. Because as of right now, every once in a while, like there's a couple of Book of the Month books on my favorite shelf. Every once in a while I'll read one that I really love, but for how much I'm paying for like a whole shelf of Book of the Month books that I haven't even read yet, and a lot of them that I have read and I just think were fine, I just figured out that I didn't think it was worth the money. But anyway, I was trying to cancel for like a long time, and things just kept happening where I was like, oh, well, I'll put it off 1 more month. Oh, let me see. You know how it goes. So finally I was going to wait. I waited till March because I thought it is my birthday month. Okay, so I thought I had an extra credit in my account and I thought it came from that. I don't know where it came from, but I thought it was my free birthday book. It wasn't, because then in April, they emailed me, maybe I accidentally put that my birthday was April, because they emailed me saying like, happy birthday, here's your free book. So I was getting ready to, or I did actually cancel my subscription because I ordered a book, had 0 credits, and canceled my Book of the Month subscription, and then saw that and I was like, well, fuck, I could have used that. So luckily I was able to go back and uncancel my subscription for that month and then use that extra credit. And then finally in the month of May I had 0 credits, because if you cancel your Book of the Month subscription, you lose all of your credits. So I also had to use all of my credits. So I finally did that. I ordered a box with The Disappearance of Rachel Price and Dragon Fruit, which is like up here. And those were my 2 credits. But if you can see, I don't know if you can see up there or not, there's another copy here. Because then like a few weeks later, after all of this, canceled my subscription, got this box with those 2 books in it, I get an email from Book of the Month saying like, your box is shipped. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I look, and this is what they're showing me is in that box. Like 6, I think it keeps going past the screenshot. I think it was like 6 or 9 copies of this book that it said was in this box. This box I did not order because I already got my box. So I was like, I thought it was a glitch in that like no box was actually coming. So I was waiting to see like what was happening, because when I pulled up the tracking link, like nothing came up. But then a box arrived with nothing but this in it. Not 9 copies of it, thankfully, just the 1. But now I have an extra one, so I'm just gonna go ahead and donate it because I know that this is a popular book right now, so I'm sure someone will like to read it. But I don't need 2 copies. Except I think that this is the one that I started, so I actually need to donate this copy. Yeah. I started reading it just like not even the first chapter. Next, I have a few middle grades. This is the sequel to the Pages & Co. series, and I think the first book is actually somewhere in this as well. I just like wasn't a big fan of this middle grade series. It's middle grade fantasy, the idea that like she reads stories and then she goes into these stories in these pages, and I thought that I would love it, but it just like didn't really work for me. I really can love middle grade fantasy. Like some of my all-time favorite books are middle grade fantasy, but this just didn't work for me, so I'm not going to continue on in the series. I never read this, but this I picked up during my era of like, I was just getting into books and collecting books and like having books around, and I wanted to have pretty nice books. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I saw this, I thought it was really pretty, and I got it. I'm not gonna read this. I'm not gonna read this. I'm not gonna read this. Speaking of book of the month, I got a few, I'm sure there are more, but a few here on the top to declutter. Sign Here, I read, it was such a cool idea, such a cool concept of like this guy who works in hell, and there's different layers to hell, but it's like hell, the way that hell is portrayed is like annoying things happen to you all the time. Like your pen is always out of ink, and like if you want to get drunk, you can drink as much as you want and you're never gonna get drunk. Or if you're like trying to just have a chill night with friends and like casually have a drink, you're gonna get like wasted off of a drink. Like it's just like all of the things that are inconvenient in life like happen in hell. And it was in my opinion a better idea than it was an execution. River Sing Me Home, I haven't read yet, and I just think I'm probably not going to. Same thing with The Wilder Woman. So hopefully I can find homes for these for people who actually will read them, because I just don't think they were things I chose because I didn't want to skip that month on Book of the Month, but I'm not gonna read them. Got a few hardbacks that don't have their dust jackets on them. Cool. These are two nonfiction books. I have the book on Columbine and then Sex Cult Nun. I'm out of my era of reading nonfiction. I tried to get back into it this year. I had a goal of reading at least a nonfiction book a month. I did that for the first like 2 months and I haven't done it since. But the thing is that if I'm going to read a nonfiction book, it's gonna be through audio. Oh, I'm pressing flowers in this one. Well, okay, well I'll get the flowers out of this one first. Ooh, this one turned out so pretty. You see? Hello? So pretty. That one's probably the prettiest one. This one's pretty though too. So I'll take out the flowers and then I'll donate it. There's more. These Witches Don't Burn. I wanted to love this. I love witchy books. I love YA queer books. It is all of those things. And I didn't love it. I didn't care. It's part of a series. I'm not gonna read the rest of it. Moving on. A Child Called It. I read it. It was fine, but every time I look at it, it was a lot. It's out. I'm Not Dying With You Tonight. It was good. It was fine. I read it like in a night. It's a YA book. Am I gonna reread it? No. Do I ever find myself thinking about it to compare to other books? No. So it's gotta go. This is a situation of I have another copy of this. When I figured out that I thought I was gonna really love this series, I went and bought the like updated newer covers for this book and like the next couple in the series. I really liked the first two because they follow Fire and Graceling because they follow different girls. And then it went downhill for me from there, and I am DNFing the series, and I definitely don't need 2 copies of this. But I did really like Graceling. This was, again, a situation of, it was buy one, get one half off at Barnes & Noble, and I thought that I was trying to figure out my taste in reading when I first got started, and I was like, oh, queer women. I love queer women, which is true, but I don't love romance. So like historical romance is definitely not going to be my thing, and historical romance that I have to read in this kind of paperback form, definitely not going to be my thing. So I'm letting those go. Oh, here was the first Pages and Co. I think, or maybe this is the second one and the one I held up for you before is the first one. Either way, I'm not going to continue in the series. The Devil in the White City, another example of a nonfiction book. The Devil in the White City, another example of a nonfiction book that I'm not going to read the physical copy of. If I read it, it would be an audiobook. Same thing for Mindhunter. When or why did I pick this up? Don't know. And also Wild. I don't like The Outside. Don't know why I thought this book would be for me, but it's not going to be. I already know. Oh, here's another one of the books under like astrology things that I was gifted that I just don't need. So make that, were there 6? Now maybe make that 7. Anyway, it doesn't matter how many of those specifically there were, but now we know. The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog, a nonfiction book that I think in my last unhaul, I got rid of one of the copies because I somehow ended up with 2. I'm not going to read the physical copy of this. I don't even really know if I'm going to read this. I don't know if that's the journey for me at this point in time. And The Trees Crept In was such a big disappointment. I thought this was going to be a 5-star all-time favorite, and I thought it was, ugh. But it was a quick read, a YA horror. The concept is cool. It's like these girls locked in this house and like the trees keep getting closer and closer to them. And then some things ensue. But it wasn't what I was wanting it to be. We're getting so close. Wow. speeding through this. Love that for us. Love that for me. Okay, but I need you to stay because I'm gonna count all of these. A Merry Little Meet Cute, I read a couple of years ago. I just want fun romance that has queer and fat representation, and this was good, but I think it was more about the representation for me than anything. I don't think I like actually really loved this book, but I loved the experience of reading it and getting to see that representation. I'm never gonna read it again, that's for sure. I am unhauling my other copy of The Daughter of the Moon Goddess. Last unhaul I know because I can see it sitting there, and I remember that I unhauled because I somehow ended up with 2 copies of this book too. It was good, it was fine. I'm not gonna continue on in the series. I tried, I started the audiobook, and it's not for me. Ugh. I have a fuzzy or a cat hair in my mouth. Yum. J.R. Silver Writes Her World. This I think I got in a book box when I was still subscribed to Owl Crate Jr. for their middle grade, and I thought that you only got fantasy, middle grade fantasy, but that wasn't true because I got a few other books like this. I'm not gonna read this. I'm sure it's cute, it's just not for me. What is this? A Forgery of Roses? Somewhere this has a cover because it's a special edition that I'm sure I got in a book box. Oh, Owl Crate, yeah. I am not gonna read this. I'm coming to terms with the fact this unhaul does not include all of these special editions that I know I'm going to unhaul a ton of because I'm hoping to do a vlog around that, but I can't wait to do this unhaul for that vlog because that vlog might never come. That vlog might come after I end up moving all of these books and I'm just gonna have to move these special edition books with me, but I know I need to get rid of like most of those. That's for future Lexa to deal with. The Collective, another huge disappointment. Thought that this was gonna be an amazing thriller and I thought it dragged on and on and on and on despite the fact that it only took a few hours to read. What was the purpose? It was supposed to include vengeful killing mothers, and I guess it did. Just nothing happened. She's a Haunting, another disappointment. I thought that this was gonna be an all-time favorite. I love YA horror. Queer YA horror tends to work for me. I just felt like this wasn't written well at all. Some of the new releases this year, and like this year in 2023, oof. This is the last stack, which is good because these books are falling over. 12th is another example of somewhere the cover exists, and I got this in a book box, and I think it's middle grade, and I'm not gonna read it. Could not tell you what it's about. Can everyone please calm down? I got this as a gift. It was good. I'm not gonna reread it. It's nonfiction. Goodbye. Red Queen, another huge disappointment. This one I started reading at like the beginning of getting back into reading, and I knew that I really loved YA fantasy series. I think I had just read Six of Crows too, so it was hard to follow that, but this, it just really highlighted the difference in quality between the storytelling in Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom and whatever the fuck this was. And last but not least, another disappointing queer romance, holiday romance, nonetheless. I was really in my era of that. I have another one, but I'm keeping it because it really pisses me off so much that it's like fun to keep around, and that's Kiss Her Once for Me by Alison Cochrane. Queer holiday romance that I hated so much. This was fine. I didn't hate it, but I didn't think it was good. But I probably shouldn't be the ultimate authority on romance because I still have not figured out exactly what works for me in that genre. Okay, I am going to count up all of these books, take a couple of thumbnails, and then I'll come back to you with a total of what we're working with here. I counted twice because I thought that I lost count the first time around, but both times I counted 57 books. So if my counting is correct, we unhauled 57 books today and kept 3. So originally there would have been 60 in this, but I'm glad that I remembered that like I don't want to get rid of these. I'm feeling really good about that. I now have to go through and make sure that I'm not pressing flowers in any of them, and that I take out all the tabs and figure out which ones are highlighted, which ones are damaged, which ones I think that I can sell, which ones that I can just give away. But either way, even if I just end up giving them all away, they just need to be gone. So if you made it all the way to the end of this video, put that like book stack emoji, because we've got a lot of books here. If you enjoyed the bit of chaos and unhingedness and lack of explaining what any book is about, then you might enjoy it here. So if you did, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!